The new rule of 6 and the fact that weddings are one of the only exceptions to that rule really have signalled a new confidence within the wedding industry, with couples really feeling like the government are prioritising weddings and accepting that they are a vital part of society and that they should be able to go ahead even if there are restrictions in other parts of our lives. What it is meaning is not only are couples really a lot more happy to go ahead with their plans that they had for the next few months, but also those that hadn't started planning at the beginning of the year but were planning on a small ceremony this year are actually now grabbing that opportunity to go ahead and get married, partly because it is an opportunity for them to get together with a larger group of family and friends. They're also very aware there's a lot of venues that are opening their doors for much smaller weddings, whereas they might have only been able to have that wedding in a particular venue in the past. A lot more venues are opening up to them. So really, really good news. Do make the most of that opportunity now to reach those couples that are keen to get married. So the rules changed very slightly on the 11th. From what we can see, in general, it was all in favour of venues. So very, very good news again. It's mainly just very, very small changes to the wording that could then be read in a completely different way. It is still, the rules still just relate to weddings and the reception that follows the wedding. There has been some question about whether it needs to be immediately following, because that wording has changed slightly. There is still that wording though, followed by. So I think the assumption is it probably needs to be on the same day. It can't be somebody that got married a month ago and is now wanting to have their reception. So the reception is usually an event that follows the ceremony. The ceremony wording is now usually involving a sit-down meal, whereas it was that it did need to be a sit-down meal. So a little bit of flexibility again there. Again, great news for those couples that perhaps are wanting to do something different, but still within the social distancing rules. So the 30 limit still is there, and we're not expecting that to change for some time. I'd love to be proved wrong on that one. And there's some, the wording on that contradicts itself. So in one place it does say that 30 needs to include the third-party suppliers that are involved during, prior and following the wedding, including setting up and tidying. But later on, when they refer to third-party suppliers, they use photographers and security as the example. So I think all venues are going on the assumption that that 30, in fact, should only include the ones actually there in the room while the celebration is going on, or while the reception is going on. Excuse me. From the point of view of the social distancing, the advice is still 2 meters social distancing between households. It was tables of 6, very clearly tables of 6, but they have now said when they are talking about the seating arrangements that this is one of the few exceptions where groups over 30 are allowed. So if anyone is planning on banqueting style, it looks like that is allowed, although you should be allowing 2 meter social distancing between households, which may just add to that challenge a little bit. Face coverings obviously are required indoors other than the couple and the officiants during the ceremony, not during the reception, although they are encouraged. Venues also need to make sure there's plenty of hand sanitizer on hand. That is the venue's responsibility. And there is now, from this Friday, a legal requirement for contact tracing, and they have specified in the wording that you must be in a position to supply those details without delay. The reason for this is that the NHS contact tracing system is failing because of the time delays in getting those crucial numbers to them. If you are not already using a digital system, please do so now. We've still got our track and trace system free of charge for venues for a couple more days. After that, it's only £14.99 a month. It is not going to break the bank, and that's for as many weddings, show rounds, open days, everything else that you're doing. plus all of your conference and events, and that will absolutely solve that problem. You are liable to a fine from Friday if you're unable to supply those contact details quickly. So anyone that is still making a note on a piece of paper or relying on the bride to send in the contact details, that is not going to be compliant. So just watch out for that. That's one of the really, really big changes that's happened this week. From the point of view of looking after your couples, a few things that have come forward through various chats has been brides are getting quite stressed about not being able to get ready before their wedding. This is somewhere that the venue can help. They aren't meant to be in groups of 6 before the wedding, before the ceremony. Obviously, the rule of 6 still applies. But perhaps if you have a couple of rooms that can be set up for doing hair and makeup beforehand, that they can rotate in and out of, that could really, really solve the problem for them. Make sure that they can get those great photos. And it also means it's your venue that's in those photos rather than the bride's house. There's little things like that can make a really, really big difference to the little things that are stressing couples. Face masks, again, can be used. Think about using face masks or wristbands or anything else as a way of identifying who the different households are. Encourage your couples to do that, because you've then got far more flexibility in the other activities that go on. Because whereas previously they specified other activities that happen, and they used cake cutting and speeches as an example, they were specifying that guests should remain seated within their households. That's another bit of the wording that has changed. Now it is just they should remain within their households. So if you can help those your guests identify who's in the households, there's an awful lot more that you could be doing. The big question has been around fireworks and whether those are allowed. It's really hard to find anything in the rules that would say you couldn't. So, unless your local authority has said no, I would say that these new rules, where it is stay in your households and stay socially distant from other households, would suggest that you can let your couples go ahead with those sort of things. Again, speeches, no longer the requirement to keep guests seated and within their households. It is just within their households, with couples being encouraged to go outside for speeches. So again, if as a venue you can help that would be great. First dance keeps coming up, and we are saying to couples, it's one of those things that where does it stop? Because the argument is that the couple are in the same household, therefore what's the harm? But you could then also argue that the parents are in the same household as each other, and that couple are, and you're going to end up with everyone taking to the dance floor in couples. So it is still no dancing, although you can have professional performers there. And a professional singer, for example, but the couple should not be having their first dance. And again, we've been saying to couples, it's quite important to not let these things get out of control, because ultimately it's the venue's license with the local authority that is at risk. And we need to really support venues in helping them be able to follow those rules. What we don't want is the situation where we're hearing in Scotland couples being told they're not allowed any music at all, for example, because it's very difficult to tell whether it's the right volume, therefore no volume is the only safe volume. So we're encouraging couples to try to follow the rules as much as possible, help their venues comply with that. From what we're hearing, there is much more confidence in couples getting married. Seems to be a lot of the weddings that were taking place at home in marquees. They're looking at moving those, really feeling for those marquee companies when they're being cancelled. But quite a lot of them are being able to move the marquee and the catering, thank you to those venues that have allowed that to happen. So moving the marquee and the catering into the venue's grounds so that it comes under the venue's COVID security and under that local authority guidance, so that it can go ahead. Others are sadly having to cancel the marquee element and the catering element, and are contacting venues for late bookings. We are really hoping that this renewed confidence and the fact that it is one of the only opportunities to be able to have a social gathering at the moment of any size at all will really encourage couples to carry on with having their ceremony and a small reception following that ceremony now, and move their reception to next year, their bigger reception to next year or beyond, whenever you can fit them in. We are really hoping it is going to stop the rush of cancellations we have heard about since that really disastrous CMA guidance being published. For those that have got couples who are postponed to next year, we are going to be emailing out a PDF to all of our venue clients later on this week. It will be out within the next couple of days, just with a little bit of advice on there that we've had from the CMA that relates to any couples that you've postponed where you have charged them anything for that postponement. It's a really, really important document, so please look out for that coming into your inbox. And it'll just help you manage those situations and avoid a problem in the future. Hopefully that's been helpful. As ever, any questions at all, just let me know. If you're wanting to use the contact tracing software, if you go to trustedtrace.co.uk/business, scroll to the very bottom, and you'll see there's the wedding solution there. Otherwise, if you go onto Guides for Brides, there's links to it all over Guides for Brides. So hopefully that will help make sure everyone is compliant. We've got some fantastic venues, some really, really high profile venues that are using it now. And it is 98.5% accurate in getting those mobile numbers. So really, really high performing. So yeah, we're very excited that we've really been able to make a difference to venues with that. Thank you very much indeed for joining me today.